Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vivek. I'm a co-founder of this company, Reverie Language Technologies. And as the company's name is, we work on language technologies, and we have been focusing on Indian language mostly. Although we do work on a few non-Indian languages as well, but our primary focus has been on Indian. Before I begin, I just want to have a very quick understanding of the audience here. While still some people are walking in, but let me just try getting a very quick. How many people here are tech? How many are non-tech then? Okay. So I ask this because there are some areas which are a little tech heavy, but I have tried to keep even the tech heavy things as light as possible. But overall, I would like that everybody is able to take enough out of this, so that there is a good justification of having to drive through Bangalore traffic and come here than do a Google search and read some papers. So I wouldn't want to go through things that you would, more obviously be able to read through papers. So the idea is that let's see, some things that may be meaningful, but not available usually elsewhere. Some of it you may still be aware of. And if there are things that I am unable to state here because I haven't covered in my own assumptions or whatever, you can ask those as questions, and I'll be happy to answer if I can. Okay? So, therefore, I thought that maybe this is a good set of agenda. The first few minutes I should cover probably the brief background and some fundamentals of NLP, and then about another half an hour we can probably talk about some major challenges. What exactly, why should we say Indic NLP, right? More importantly, if we try comparing that with English, because English is appearing a lot more mature when we look at NLP tools, right, than Indic. And then finally, I would probably touch upon some advanced NLP in terms of machine translation and ASR. Although I personally do not think that these are the most important, or I would say the most complex NLP problems. But at least today, these are the most sought for, and therefore I believe the majority of the people within this audience may be having an inclination to know about this. But in case you would have other interest, you can obviously let me know. So does this look like a fair enough agenda? Okay. So I have left some time for Q&A, which you could obviously eat up even during the course of this discussion. I'm perfectly fine with that. So let's try starting this with a small question. Hi. Okay. So you've missed nothing, only the agenda. Okay, we'll start with a simple question. So before I start with this question itself, let me try telling you a little story. That when I started work on NLP, it was mid-1990s. So it's a pretty long time ago. And by training, I'm an instrumentation and electronics engineer. So in those days, internet was the big buzzword, right? So anybody who talked about web technologies was like very big, because internet hadn't even come to India at that point in time, or it just came in when I started working a year ago. So I got into CTAC because the job advertisement was talking about web technologies. But when I got in there, I was pushed into research. I don't know, out of 50 people who had been selected across the country, only 4 were asked to do research, and eventually I was the only one who was pushed to keep reading NLP. And when I came in there, those were not the days when IT was popular and there would be high-paying jobs. It was still a government institute. So the people who came in there, they were there only because they were interested to solve great problems, to work on great problems. That used to be the big thing. So when they started explaining what I am supposed to do, they did not point me to any papers. They did not give me any papers to read. They didn't even ask me, so they knew my background or training did not have any computing experience. So they did not ask me to go through any theories. In plain, simple words, they would explain me that, okay, why don't you write an algorithm that does this? That's it. And it was left to me to figure out how. Then I would go back and ask how. And then they would explain certain things. So कई बार क्या होता था कि let me ask, are there people who cannot read Devanagari or cannot understand Hindi? Okay, you can't read Devanagari? Okay, you also can't? Okay. So so there are some examples, or many examples are there, and only so that majority of the audience can read and relate, I have taken examples using Devanagari. Okay, so pardon me, and you can ask me if you need clarifications. So when I used to try those, I used to think that even to comprehend this for the human mind is so difficult, and he is asking me to write a program that should be able to do that. So, but from then until now, things have moved really far, really far. But the fact or the fundamentals or the first principles haven't changed. The entire effort of machine learning or NLP is still all about trying to code what the human mind tries to do. Okay? So that's where we will start with this first question. Let me see. How would you pronounce this? Okay, raise a hand. Who would want to say it out loud?
Sat.
Sat.
P
Sat.
P is silent.
Sorry? P is silent. Okay, sat. Anyone else? Is this a word? This is not a word.
What is that measure?
Sorry?
Pronunciation.
This word, are you able to read this? Huh? PSAT? Okay. So, nobody, right? So he says that P is silent and it should be sat. Those who do not agree, can you raise your hand?
Is it pat?
Sorry?
Is it pat?
Pat?
Silent.
Pat, okay. I'm just taking some options. I'm not going to say.
Maybe it's a jumbled, so fast.
Fast. It's jumbled word, okay. Okay, then let's look at this one. Moving a little closer towards clarity that it's 10. Huh? Pens. Okay. Then this. Sorry? Poles. So here P is no more silent, right? What is happening to P? Huh? It's evolving. Okay. In this one, let's say we add one more word. Is there a confusion now? There is no confusion. This is also not a word yet. Right? So what happened? Why was P confusing for us so far? No. Sorry?
There was no continuity for that initial set of characters.
Okay. So here what is happening is, sorry?
This use psychology, some words sound like this.
Right. So the fact is that all the words are not really words, and therefore they are new to our minds. And machine learning is also basically to train the machine so that it is able to deal with unseen data as well, right? So these are unseen data for us. When we saw that unseen data, in this particular word, this is still not a word, all of us were agreeing, iska ek hi hai, psych. But the others, we were still debating. The fact is that in PS, when it begins, P becomes silent, was taught to us when we learned about the words psychology or psycho, right? Nobody told us that Y ought to follow. But still, in all these words where it started with PS, we were confused. That's because the mind still has its own algorithms that keeps looking for patterns and I would say the environments, right? And tries to match this. So, okay, now let's take another question. I'm asking these questions just so that I'm able to give an emphasis on the whys. Okay, so let's ask another question. Do we see that gray box there, gray circle? So I know I was told that the people at the back may not be able to read very clearly. So this is the ASCII table. ASCII table. So let me try pointing this. These are all capital A to Z. These are lowercase a to Z. In the ASCII encoding, where different characters are encoded, symbols, numbers, then alphabets, we see that after Z, there is a patch which are different characters and then lowercase alphabet start later. The question is why?
For pronunciation difference,
Okay.
if you put that cap over here.
Okay, so the answer would generally be very obvious. We will come to the answer. It's not about pronunciation, but that's a very logical thinking though. So we'll come to it. Let's look at this. This is ASCII encoded MATHS. I have deliberately not put the numbers, but these are the binary encoding of each of those. We are looking at the third MSB. Okay, they are all zeros, right? The same maths when written in lowercase. The third MSB, all ones. Now if we look at the same maths with uppercase, lowercase adjacent, the only thing that is changing is the third MSB. So if we go back to the table, what it means is that if we were to compare, sort, search, do any processing on the text, for what reason? For NLP. Then all that we need to do is mask the third MSB. Does that make sense? It does, right? Now, when was ASCII created? So let's therefore look at a short brief history. So computers were created or the first invented for use in the 1950s. Mid 1950s में पहले उसको use किया. It was a computing device. It used to just calculate. By mid 1960s, the need for the computing device to be programmed and therefore to be able to debug had become important. So now when you have a machine that has to tell you something, then it was felt that it has to be able to tell a message, not a certain random code which we always have to keep going to look up. Maybe one message would also be fine. So the need for text usage was felt. The moment the text usage requirement was felt, then how do you begin? You begin by encoding, right? That is how ASCII started. So the people who were researching on computing in those days were all concentrated in America. They, at that point in time, while still trying to develop the system, did not think that अभी से हमको दुनिया के बारे में सोचना है. Let's first look at the English language alone, because English covers America. So it became American Standard Code for Information Interchange. By the time that more computing devices are able to exchange messages with each other, they will be able to follow this coding. But the people who were doing those fundamental research, they obviously wanted to see to it, because they are doing fundamental research, pretty brilliant people. They would want everything as optimized as possible, right? Therefore, they put in enough amount of thought that if the Latin script has got these properties, how can we make it such that it is efficient in computing, right? So that is the reason why there was so much. So I gave you one little information about how the alphabets are arranged, but there are more information about how everything is arranged within ASCII. So just for an encoding of 92 characters, there has been tremendous amount of deep research. Okay? So having said that, when it comes to Indic computing, where are we? Right? Okay. So just for your information, usually I do not have a habit of putting in a lot of information on slides. So my slides might actually not carry a lot of text or information. So I would urge that whatever that I'm saying, in case you find something really interesting, just make a little note. But most of it will stay in your mind. You will not have to take notes. Okay. Okay. So what happened is that ये mid 1960s की बात है. उस समय around mid 1970s के आसपास एक स्टूडेंट आईआईटी कानपुर के वो गए यूएस में एमएस करने. तो जब पढ़ाई करने वहाँ गए तो he also thought computer is the newest device, it's exciting, and he wanted to study that. He did his PhD trying to create an OCR in Sanskrit. Okay, even before any other NLP OCR was created. Okay, and that too in the 1970s. पता नहीं यार scanner था पता नहीं. I really don't know. And unfortunately, I haven't yet got a chance to speak to him. So I haven't gathered this information. I haven't asked these questions. But he wanted to work on OCR. And when he wanted to work on OCR, because it probably could work for English, he thought he would try it for Devanagari. And that is when he thought, अरे यार OCR करूँ तो उसको सेव कहाँ करूँ, कैसे स्टोर कैसे करूँ? I mean, what would I interpret that into? And he thought, well, that means that if I have to compute for Indic, there is no way that I can do anything unless I have an encoding like ASCII, right? And that is when he sat down and he started writing an encoding for Devanagari. But while he was trying to do that, he was a very brilliant guy. He figured out that if I have to do that sort of an encoding for Devanagari, I will not, maybe let's say cover Sanskrit or Hindi. What is it that I will do if I have to add a Bengali? Because we just saw text in those days were in 8 bits. And 8-bit can store maximum 255 characters. उसमें से काफी कुछ रिजर्व जा चुके हैं ऑलरेडी. और इंग्लिश भी है. इंग्लिश के बगैर दूसरा कुछ यूज नहीं किया कर सकते. साथ में ही यूज करना पड़ेगा. So he thought, if I have to do that, then he started looking at, when he started looking at other scripts, he thought that everything looks similar. बंगाली में भी अ आ ई वगैरह है, क ख ग घ है, हिंदी में भी है. तो क्या मैं ऐसा कर सकता हूँ कि इन सब का एक सुपरसेट बना लूं? And I will call this as the common set. And maybe we can have some identifiers that will identify this is Devanagari. So we will operate in Devanagari. And when it is Bengali, we will change it to Bengali, and so on. Right? That is how he defined a standard which eventually became our own national standard called ISKI, Indian Script Code for Information Interchanges.
Something this sort in Varanasi. I have been there, and there was some document where it was written like how that it was like something made of stones, and there it was scripted like how the language evolved, and there was some kind of superset which I saw in Varanasi, Kashi. So I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe if he may have done those sort of studies, that's possible. But we all know that a lot of Indic scripts that are not just India but other neighboring countries also, they have similar origin and therefore similar behavior as well. Okay, so this is what came out as our national standard. Indian Script Code for Information Interchange is IS 13194. This is, I mentioned 1991 because that's the last revision. But the first standard that was released by Bureau of Indian Standards was in 1988. Okay, I was born. Okay, so that was in 1988. But here you can see what he had tried to do is, he had tried to keep ASCII as is, lowercase, lower ASCII, and he had used the upper ASCII area to have ISKI. But when he was doing ISKI, at that point in time, he thought, how do I represent those characters? Because there are some characters that are not in Devanagari but will be available in Telugu. There are some in Malayalam which may not be available in Kannada. So, when he had collected the superset, in which script should he represent? He used the Devanagari because it was easy for him to read. Okay, so therefore he used Devanagari only to represent. We'll come back to this later. Now let's start getting into. So more or less right now we have understood the key reasons why we would do NLP. And behind that, there are two things that impact NLP the most. The first one is encoding. The second one is the algorithms that run, like the way the human mind runs, so the learning algorithms. Okay. So we look at some of the challenges. So the major challenges that we see, I'm quite certain that some people may have thought that we will talk about an NLP challenge, say for example, the question and answer कैसे करें या फिर machine translation कैसे train करें, that sort of. But trust me, there are plenty and there are a lot of research happening already on those. But all of that would be meaningful only when we have understood these challenges well. So what exactly is different when it comes to Indian languages? The Indic languages are phonetic in nature. The alphabet itself is phonetic, which means what? We are very less likely to make a spelling mistake for psychology by missing out the P. If we were to write that in Indian languages. साइकोलॉजी को हम स से ही लिख सकते हैं, है ना? तो जो गलतियां होती है हमारी, उनका जो नेचर है वो बहुत अलग है. कितना अलग है कि छोटी की जगह बड़ी, right? That sort of mistakes. Letters have an arrangement. Well, if we look at Latin, ASCII encoding did have one property that it exploited, right? For which it designed itself, the lowercase and capital case. But if you look at the English or the Latin characters arrangement, does B have any proximity to C other than just the sequence? C has anything to do with D? D and E? No. But जब हम वर्णमाला पढ़ते हैं, our letters are arranged in a sequence. The vowels come first, then we have vargas, then we have other consonants. Right? Okay. Then there is a grammar to our scripts. This is great. But if not understood, this is dangerous. We will see how this becomes super dangerous little later. Okay? So there is a grammar to our scripts. Means what?
Different vowels can change grammar rules.
Grammar to the script.
Syntax.
Yes. There is a syntax to writing. You cannot, like in English, every letter is having an independent, I would say, existence. So किसी भी letter को किसी के भी बात लिख दो, तो या तो वो एक word बने या फिर एक abbreviation बन जाए, right? But Indian languages में किसी भी letter को किसी के बाद में नहीं लिख सकते. It makes no sense, right? So there are only certain things that make sense. So what do all of these things tell us? These things tell us that if we know these, we will be able to do at least a few absolutely basic and fundamental things that are necessary for NLP out of the box without having to put our minds. बहुत आसानी से कर सकेंगे. वो क्या? कि हम इनवैलिड को पता लगा लेंगे, डेटा क्लीनिंग कर लेंगे, क्योंकि हमको पता है कि या तो ऐसा होगा या फिर नहीं होगा, वो गलत है, right? Okay. Now, then there are some challenges. These challenges are something like this: data source and its availability. Today, what amount of data do we really have? But I actually want this audience to stay with this for a while. I will come back to it. The display is complex, right? The display of characters, Indian characters, they are categorized as complex scripts because their behavior is non-linear. They form clusters. And most of us do not have a very clear understanding about what that cluster is. Do you agree with this? Is there anyone who is not agreeing to this statement that most of us do not have a very clear understanding about what a cluster is?
Elaborate a little more how cluster what the meaning.
Okay, let's say I would write a word Haddiyan. Haddiyan has got a double D, right? So that double T with the E matra is supposed to be a cluster. It is supposed to be a cluster. Haddiyan. There are 3 syllables. Each syllable is usually called as a cluster. So I made a statement that many people do not have an understanding about what a cluster is. Is there anyone here who is disagreeing? Everybody agrees to it, right? But who tells me this? Actually, I made this statement because this is something that is told to me many times. Who tells me? Academic experts tell me. Industry experts also tell me. But I question. When we write, all of us have read at least some Indian language in our schools, right? There is probably nobody who hasn't, right? Okay. When we write, do we have that confusion? Because we don't know clusters, right? We don't have that confusion. We are able to write peacefully without any errors. Then how is it that we don't know something and still we are able to do it perfectly? No. It is the statement that is wrong. We do have a very clear understanding about what the cluster is. We will come back to it and understand how we have not yet actually, let us say, मैं आपको एक बात बताता हूँ. गाड़ियाँ जब बनी तब रास्ते भी बने. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि जब गाड़ियाँ बनी तो किसी ने कहा कि अब गाड़ी तो बन गई, अब जहाँ जाना जाओ. because it can transport you. Why do you need roads? But you do first, whenever you apply technology, you try to solve it for your usage from the first principles of what you already know. Here, the first principle was we knew our languages, we knew how to write. But then, when we added technology to it, we made it so complicated that the people who knew it started thinking they don't know it. Okay?
So, you need to say the Indian clusters, that there is an implicit logic, the way we have picked it up.
Yes. You will naturally not make mistakes. Okay, so the very fact that we have a grammar to our scripts tells us that intrinsically it's impossible that somebody can make mistakes. Okay, I will come to some of these explanations eventually. Okay, then phonetic encoding. Okay, this is actually very important. How many here in this room know Unicode? I talked about ISKI, but very few. Okay. Okay, so if we do not know the encoding, it becomes slightly more difficult for us to understand NLP. Let me still try. I talked about ISKI, right? So Unicode is actually the modern used encoding across the industry. It is like ISKI, but because ISKI could not have scaled to so many languages, the industry has come up with an encoding and it called Unicode, universal encoding. Okay, so which will encompass or have encoding for all the world languages. Now, in Unicode, our Indian language characters have also been defined, and since it borrowed from ISKI, it has followed more or less a similar fundamental pattern. उसमें क्या है? Vowels are there, consonants are also there, matras are there. Do we understand what is a matra? Okay, when we write kitab, we write ka and the e matra joins the consonant, right? So for example, if we say ki, kyo, ki, okay, ka with an e matra. If we say kai, then we write a ka and an e separately. So that e is called a vowel, and matra is a vowel that must join a consonant. I said must join a consonant. Why? Because there is a script grammar. A matra will not appear independently. If it appears independently, it has to appear as a vowel form. Right? So these are fundamentals without which we do not process text. Okay. So what happens is that the phonetic encoding, like I said, not the best suited. This way of encoding is sometimes not the best way of encoding when it comes to processing Indian languages. Why? If I would say Shaitanya and I would say Gehraiya, both these words are ending with iya. So if you would want to write a stemmer that should find the root word, if you are searching for that word, you should be able to find that word. Then you will be able to at least remove the stem. If you would want to do that, now your iya in both these cases are not the same. One is with a matra, the other is with a vowel. Gehra, iya. And what was the other one? Sheta, nia. That means na has the e intrinsic as a matra. Right? So if you were to write these two words not in Unicode, Devanagari, or let's say not even in Tamil, you understand Tamil, right? Okay. So then, if you were to write that in English letters, then you will not face this problem. Both of these will probably end with IYAN. Right? So, why did that happen? Because when you are writing in English letters, you naturally adopt something called as the pure consonant way of encoding. That means if you just write a K, you don't know how to pronounce You have to write another vowel to be able to pronounce it. Okay, a Tamilian will understand that better. Okay, then in inflections and agglutinations, these are challenges. The inflections in Indian languages are very different from how inflections work for English. In there are a lot of similarities also, but in inflections in Indian languages, we use or there are use of certain rules. Okay, I cannot within the time that we have, I cannot get into rules, but you must keep in mind that when you are handling, if you look for those rules, then you will be able to do those better. Agglutination. Very interesting. The Latin-based languages practically do not use agglutination. The only agglutination that is used in Latin-based languages is forming compound words. Agglutination क्या है? What is inflection and what is agglutination? Inflection मतलब any word that is taking any suffix, prefix, right? For example, if I would say constant and constantly, right? It is an inflected form of constant. Constant is the root word, right? So gehra or gehraiyan, this is the plural, let's say. Okay, that is also an inflection. Agglutination is what I was about to explain. Is sandhi, right? We have all known our languages have sandhi. They pose serious amount of difficulty the moment you want to use out-of-the-box NLP algorithms for Indian language texts. Why? The regular algorithms look for word boundaries on spaces and punctuations. And trust me, in the northern languages, to a large extent, sandhis have actually, reduced to a certain extent. But in southern languages, sandhi usage is very heavy. Dravidian languages. And in Sanskrit, you can practically join, let's say there is a page of text, the whole page can be written without any spaces. And still every word will maintain its own independent identity within that. It's not that it becomes a confusing word. There is no, every word will still have its distinct individual identity and word boundary, but the whole can be written as one single word by sandhi. Okay, so these things become super important for us when we are trying to do Indic NLP. Okay, I said that I will come back to data source availability little later. Now, having come this far, I want to actually go back to this brief history. Nobody asked me who that man was. IIT Kanpur is not a man.
No, I did not buy.
Okay. So IIT Kanpur guy is the man.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm saying is the one.
Right. Yes. So nobody wanted to be curious enough to want to understand. Yeah. आज हम लोग.
You just want to ask later maybe.
Okay, that was the question for the last. Okay. So what actually he did, his name was Dr. R.N.K. Sinha. कुछ लोग शायद उनका नाम सुने हो. I call him the father of Indic computing because he thought so much in advance, right? And not just thought, what he did, right? So what he did thereafter is that he came back and he continued his research. Even while his encoding standard that he was making as a draft, the encoding standard is not an overnight job, right? We just saw that ASCII itself took a lot of research to come out. And when you are trying to do ASCII and also trying to cover so many scripts of the country and you want to make sure that every aspect is deeply researched and the encoding is created such that it is super efficient for computing. Means it should be great when you are trying to sort text, search, do a lot of computing on that and all of that. So when he wanted to do that, it was extremely deep research. So the encoding standard in 1988, it came out after all his development were done. So what is it that he created? He created the first integrated Devanagari computer. The integrated Devanagari computer he created along with some of his students from IIT Kanpur. Okay? And those students, after the IDE had been created, they started going into different places. Out of which, one such student, he continued to work on the Devanagari, not just the computer, but he wanted to make a terminal for Indian scripts extending from Devanagari to other languages. His project was taken up as a scientific project by the government of India into CDAC in the same year, 1988. So that is how the GIST group in CDAC got formed. Mohantambe. So yeah, it's very important that some of us, if we want to work on this area, should read some of this. It's super important. लेकिन उसके बाद क्या हुआ? उसके बाद ये हुआ कि these guys, they created software. They solved all these problems. They created those software, the first Indian language usage software. And along with that, with such beautifully and scientifically designed encoding, they started working on algorithms that would solve the NLP problems, right? So how you can type fast. The first standard, national standard for keyboard also got created called InScript. That is also mentioned in the same standard. And then, so how you can type fast, how you could autocorrect, and all those mechanisms, like I mentioned, the script grammar and everything became parts of those algorithms, such that even a layman, if he sits down, if he knows how to read write his own language, 4th standard pass, बैठ करके अगर लिखे तो वो गलतियां नहीं कर सकता. Why? Because it's natural to us. We will not make mistakes. So they wouldn't make any mistakes, right? So all of that started happening. Those were not the Windows days, very early computing days. Many of us may not have been born, but in around 92, 93, our government started giving out voter ID cards and the entire voter ID database in local languages were stored in computers in early 1990s. It's that early. So the entire voter IDs were being printed in local languages and the voter ID cards and the whole details were being stored in databases, land records. All of that started happening. While that was happening, they also created beautiful fonts, printing machines, and other such things to help the publishing industry, because majority of Indian readership is in non-English, right? It is 10 times higher than English readership. So, they depended on the publishing industry. So for the publishing industry, they started creating beautiful word processing software, much better than the Microsoft Word of those days. And then they added features like spell checking, autocorrect, and many other such things. Then the NLP kept on growing. The NLP that we are talking about today was already very mature in mid-90s. I created the first Indian language transliteration engine, जो रेलवे पे चार्ट लगते हैं ना, रेलवे डब्बे के पर, और वो चार्ट में इंग्लिश और उसके साथ में हिंदी या फिर दूसरे और कुछ भाषा में लिखा हुआ आता है. So वो एक ऐसा प्रोग्राम है छोटा सा जो वो उनके प्रिंटिंग डिवाइस पे ही चलता है वहीं से. And it does transliteration entirely offline. There is no, in those days there was no problem. The entire machine learned algorithm is all in there, and it would be fed, because ticket booking होता था English में. It would be fed, and the whole chart would get printed in a different language, real time. So much got done, and not just that. You would be surprised that every state, and even tier 2, tier 3 cities, if there is a small publisher also, they would have specialized, calligraphy artists who would design specialized fonts for their books, their style, their own magazine style, and they would print. So even that industry started growing rapidly. Lekin, in the year 2000, Microsoft launched Windows 2000 with Unicode and said there is no support for legacy encoding or software. They introduced open type fonts and Unicode. Both of these, which were created by only the consortium of American companies sitting in the Silicon Valley. And they said there is no backward compatibility that will be provided. Unfortunately, the Indian government could not tell Microsoft, for which India was probably one of their largest markets, second largest in the world probably. उनको ये नहीं कह सके कि at least make sure that our national standard is supported. No backward compatibility was given, no compatibility to ISKI was also given. So all that work that these people were doing suddenly perished. It died. And when Unicode and OpenType came in, the OpenType font making itself was so complex that these font makers, who were just calligraphy artists, they had to also become super experts in programming and logic to be able to create a font. भैया मुझे बहुत अच्छी तरीके से चित्र बनाना आता है, लेकिन मैं लॉजिक नहीं समझ पाता. भैया तुम फॉन्ट नहीं बना सकते. Right? That was thrust upon us. Today, if you go look for beautiful styles for your own publishing, in English you will find hundreds and you can do great styling. Try doing that for your own language, one page. Okay, so what happened to this one? The data and resource availability. Practically, until the mid-2000s, the amount of data that our own print industry and publishing industry created was humongous. And all of that data was great quality. क्योंकि उस समय ऐसा UGC content नहीं था. It was curated, moderated content for quality publishing. And it was also created by using the software that would not allow erroneous content getting created. Right? So, today the entire NLP is dependent on good quality data. A lot of that was available, but today it is, we are unable to find it. Right? Okay, so now let's move. There are some solutions here.
Any of that previous work, is it available as a open source or any documentation to read how they did those grammar rules and coding?
See, the ISKI standard is a national standard. The ISKI standard document is available. You can read it. In fact, आप लोगों को ताज्जुब होगा. Today the industry doesn't follow any of this. When I joined CDAT, उस समय anybody who used to come and join the language tools and technologies division to work, no matter what profile, marketing profile ही क्यों ना हो, business development profile ही हो, technical हो चाहे ना हो, उसको भी ये इसकी वाला जो standard document है, उसको दे देते थे. For 7 days you have to keep reading this document. Nothing else to do. Okay, and after those 7 days, you have to you basically appear for certain tests. Only if you have completely understood it, then you go forward. Okay, because the idea was that was a very high degree of commitment. They would say what you are going to create is for normal people to use. Technology cannot be such that it complicates things for people. So you want to understand what all has been done here in making technology for languages. Okay, so yeah.
One question, sir.
Yeah.
Microsoft did not support the ISKI. In the publication industry, it is done parallel without any Microsoft.
So for those who would be curious about it, you should talk to some publishers. Till today, a lot of publishers continue to use legacy systems and have not been able to migrate. Many people they complain to us that ये हमारे Indian publishers तो online कुछ देना नहीं चाहते हैं. मैं उनको ये सवाल करता हूँ कि यार आप I mean, they do not want to lose their identity. They have done so much work. They would at least want their text represented in their own style and way. You provided no means to do that. So, and you say they don't want to come online because they say that if I go publish that online, it doesn't look good. My content is looking good only when I am printing it. Because I am able to at least control all the styles and everything else. So yes, it went in parallel, but it did not become available online. For you and I, who would want to do NLP, a lot of content is out there, not available on the web, online. Okay? Yeah. So input. Here is another very interesting myth. I once said, when Google published their report and was beating about it very, very loudly. I'm really sorry. I'm not really trying to bash Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, etc., etc. They're all great companies. They've done great work, but sometimes these things are done only out of business interest. Today, India has become very, very interesting for people because India has become a market. It is not the Indians, it is the country. It's the market. But here I believe I am talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs who also want to solve it for India, right? Who would be interested also in the Indians, right? Okay, so we will probably do things better. So so what happened is that Google said that 0.1% content on the internet is in Indian languages. 60% content is in English. Okay, and English then followed by certain other languages, but English is majority. I can understand English is majority. But 0.1% content in Indian languages, with reach being so much, so many users, क्या हो रहा है? Q, right? So I said that when so many people created content in English, उसको कोई फंड नहीं कर रहा था. ऐसा भी नहीं था कि people were being asked on gunpoint write in English. No. They created in English because it was easy to do it. The ecosystem existed, it was facilitated, they were able to do it because they wanted to. The urge to express is felt by everyone. And therefore many people write. Some talk, but many people write. Some write stories, some write articles, some write poems, but many people write blogs, right? Even if you don't publish, but you still write. So ये natural urge के लिए we don't have to say that, well, there aren't people who are creating. They are creating. They want to create. It is not facilitated. So that is the reason why I say input continues to remain as the biggest challenge. When people say that no, Indic writing is difficult, people are not writing because it's not easy to write. So this is obviously a challenge for all of us to solve. If you look at Indic writing in the first place and compare that with English writing, क्या होता है कि English जब हमको लिखना होता है, we are taught A to Z, right? The letters A to Z. Those are only 26 letters. When we have learned that, now let us say if I have learned A to Z and my dad tells me write your name, and he tells me you write V-I-V-E-K, Vivek. Because I have known how to write V and I and V and E and K, I can write. Done. How do you write your own language? Indic writing does not start or end like this. We study the Varnmala, that is A se lekar ke Ha tak, right? After we have studied the Varnmala, we study Bharakhadi, right? That is from A to Ha, whatever that we have learned, how now vowels join consonants, that is Bharakhadi. Then we learn conjuncts, how different consonants or what different consonants join with different other consonants, which is called yuktakshars. When we have learned these three, then we are ready to write. Right? प्रकाश अगर लिखना है तो उसको क में रकार लगाना है, उसको कंजंग सीखा है, क में आमात्रा लगाना है, उसने 12 कड़ी सीखा है, फिर स लिखना है क्योंकि वर्णमाला पता है उसको, तब ये होता है. Now, technologically you have created keyboards, but you have never taken any step towards making people understand how these 3 steps translate into the computing medium when you move from writing to typing. Don't do it and expect people should automatically. नहीं होता है ना, so नहीं होता है. That is why it is typing. Today we are trying to facilitate by providing speech and other such features. But content creation is actually people's urge and they would do it. The second one is search. So search is actually a phonetic problem and also a synonymous problem. That is, when you are searching, you do 3 things. One is you try matching phonetically, even in English. That is the reason why English search is more complex, but Indic search will be a lot simpler the moment you are talking only about phonetic search. However, there are certain things that we still have to keep in mind. I'll mention those. Then vowel forms. I already told you that vowel has 2 forms. It is because of the encoding process that we have chosen. So if we are aware, we will be able to take care of that. What are the 2 forms? Then synonyms and synonymous. So synonymous is actually जो मुहावरे हैं ना वो भी synonymous में है. Because many times we make वो इंडिया में थोड़ा ज़्यादा है that we use alternate statements or phrases to mean certain things, right? So in English a lot of this data is readily available, but for Indian languages we think or not a lot of work has been done. Whatever has been done is still we think that it is unavailable to us. Then analytics. So analytics, I did not elaborate on this one because analytics is actually a subjective solution. So let us say you have a lot of comments to analyze. Probably you would want to analyze sentiments out there. Whereas you may want to take statistics out of how many people are talking about a certain subject and so on. So analytics is subjective, but it is actually a derivative from search and inference. So inference is rather a more important problem right now, which feeds back to most of the others. That is, sorry, in the bracket command is what I wanted to write. I have written comment. So inference mein, when somebody is making a command, it needs to be inferred. Or if somebody is asking a question, it needs to be inferred. Beyond these 2, if whatever that has been commanded or asked is unclear, it gets into conversation. Second World War हो जाने के बाद लगभग colonialism खत्म हो गया, right? The whole world became geographies that were independent, who could now start maintaining their own identity, and also, yeah. So and also become what should we say? Basically decide for themselves, right? Independent, they decide for their own policies, क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना. तो वैसे वाले टाइम पे मेरे हिसाब से इंडिया के अंदर में हमने 3 बहुत बड़ी गलतियां की. मैं तीनों नहीं बताऊंगा, conscious about time, but एक का तो जरूर बताऊंगा, which is in context. Okay. Now, what was that? And let us take an analogy of that with China. Although I can give similar analogies with many other geographies, but just to keep it simple, let's take that with China. People many experts said that Chinese as a language is more difficult to learn. So they wanted to brand that language as a difficult language. तो चाइनीज लोगों ने कहा कि यार अगर ये बात सही है तो हमारे जो बच्चे हमारी भाषा थोड़ा लेट से बोलते हैं ऑन एन एवरेज दुनिया की बाकी भाषाओं से देरी से सीखेंगे ना, उनके डिफिकल्ट है, लेकिन वो तो यार लगभग सेम उम्र में सेम काम करते हैं जो बाकी लोग दूसरी जगह करते हैं। तो जब इंडिपेंडेंट हो गया सारा भारत, मतलब भारत कह रहा हूँ पूरी दुनिया, तो उस समय इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन को लगभग 100 साल के आसपास हो चुका था, 100 years of industrial revolution, and the industrial revolution had done some things to this world that were impossible to ignore. What were those things? It created a lot of industrialization, machining, advancement in communication, travel. So everything that we could now see that machines could do for human beings, right? That was happening. And that ended up also causing 2 world wars. Okay, तो अब दूसरा वर्ल्ड वॉर जब खत्म हुआ तब तक बहुत सनसनी हो चुकी थी, लेकिन इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन को फिर भी कोई भी नज़रअंदाज नहीं कर पाया. Everybody thought that knowledge, be it in engineering or in medicine or in whatever else, agriculture, is the knowledge we should all go after. Okay, and what is it that they did? To be able to go after that knowledge, which at least at that point in time was called Western knowledge, modern knowledge, you have to do one of the 2 things. Introduce English in your schools so that your students can learn the language in which that knowledge is getting published or that knowledge is getting taught in higher education institutions, so that your students are ready to be able to take that from the rest of the world. You can go abroad and learn, or you actually keep a vigil, keep taking all that knowledge and translate it and start teaching the same in your own schools. दोनों में से कौन सा किया जाए? तो चाइना बहुत डेलिब्रेट करके सोचे कि यार अगर हम इंग्लिश स्कूलों में सिखाने की कोशिश करेंगे, पहले हमको इतने सारे इंग्लिश के टीचर्स भी तो चाहिए, स्कूल भी तो बहुत सारे हैं, इतना बड़ा देश है, इतने सारे लोग हैं, वो जल्दी से नहीं होगा. It won't be quick enough. Second is, अब कितने बच्चे अंग्रेजी सीखेंगे या नहीं सीखेंगे उस पर हमारा कोई कंट्रोल नहीं होगा. I'm sorry. So we won't be able to control how many people are really studying English well enough or not. We won't go that route. We will try getting all the knowledge and try to translate that. We will follow modern curriculum, but we will translate and have our own schools teach those in our languages. India did the other one. Now, world over, the school dropout rate, world over, ऐसा नहीं है कि डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज में ज़्यादा बच्चे पढ़ाई नहीं करते और डेवलप्ड नेशंस में करते हैं. अमेरिकी लोग बहुत पढ़ाई नहीं करते क्योंकि उनको पैसों की भी जरूरत नहीं है. जैसे से सो वर्ल्ड ओवर on an average, general school dropout rates are around 50% post primary school. प्राइमरी स्कूल क्रॉस करते करते लगभग आधी जनता बाहर हो जाती है स्कूल से. By the time people matriculate, around 70 to 80% have dropped out. Less than 10% actually go up to graduations. Less than 10%. Okay? Now, given that, वो जो पढ़ लिख गए उनमें से कुछ लोग बनेंगे जीनियस, और ये जो बाकी इनफैक्ट आधी जनता, the 50% of the people who actually dropped out in primary school, what about them? Do they have brains or they were all fools? People drop out of schools because of a variety of reasons. Variety of reasons. There can be any difficulty. And dropping out before primary schools are completed is too early an age. There is a whole life out there for their personalities to show, colors. So what happens if you have studied up to class 4? That means you have become literate. You know how to read, write. Not language, literate. What is the language that you know? The language that you are speaking at home or with your friends. That is the language that you already know. Now, if you can read, write, you will be able to write letters, you will be able to read newspapers, you will be able to read stories, magazines. Probably that means you will be able to read whatever that is made available to you and you are interested in. So, if you are really a genius or good enough and interested enough, you would probably also go pick up an engineering magazine on automobiles, let's say, or on communication, and start doing something of your own. So, जब curriculum English में है, तो curriculum difficult अगर हो गया तो उसको आसान करने के लिए guide books लिख सकते हैं. A parallel industry that tries to make it simpler for your exams, but the same simpler knowledge becomes available in terms of, let's say, guide books or magazines or whatever else, even to everyone else. So whoever can go and buy, anybody who gets interested gets an access. At least availability becomes there. It's available. So in China, also the school dropout rates are like that. But in every lane, people are innovating because they do not have to learn English. Everything is available. So much literature is available. So people sometimes say that the Chinese government accelerated all of this. I do not know which government can accelerate innovation. Is that possible? Government accelerating innovation. People do that, right? So everything that we are seeing from China, no matter how much is actually a tip of the iceberg. When you go into that country, the amount of innovation that is there inside that country, that they are catering to the local market itself. It's a massive country with so many people, right? Market itself is large. Mind blowing. लेकिन इंडिया में जिसको अंग्रेजी नहीं पता, हम उसको वैसे ही मूर्ख मान लेते हैं. इसकी भी वजह है. One, because that fellow anyway cannot get access to good knowledge. क्यों? इंग्लिश इंजीनियरिंग का या फिर टेक्निकल हो, मेडिसिन हो, किसी भी चीज हो, उसमें कौन सी किताब तेलुगु में छपी बताओ? Which Telugu book teaches you anything at all? So that fellow is still confined to Tollywood. So he will talk about those stories, and therefore somebody who has learnt about machine learning, deep learning will undermine that fellow, right? He has got all the right to undermine. So I feel that it is time for us to be empathetic and focus a lot on that a lot of genius is there. They are not, we are unable to respect them just because of this. And this, we did it to them. I mean, we as an independent nation, we did it to ourselves, our people. Okay, so now in conversion, these are the, I would say, major kind of data that we require to convert. The first being names and addresses. They usually get converted only phonetically. That is, they get converted through transliteration. Okay? So Prakash remains Prakash, MG Road still remains MG Road. Structured and well-formed text. That is, let's say if somebody has written something about ball bearings that he's selling, then he would have tried and explained it in business language. Business language, not creative writing. Then is creative writing, where you actually try and put a lot of art into your language, right? And then let's say newspaper headlines, taglines. So when you try to convert in each of these four categories are significantly different from each other. Very, very different. The headlines, taglines probably are the shortest and one may get very tempted to think that that should then be one of the easiest to handle. ठीक है, मैं पूरी न्यूज़पेपर को ट्रांसलेट करूँ, अगर हेडलाइंस ही कर लिया तो कम से कम समझ तो मिल जाएगा. Would be the toughest to solve, right? And creative writing, of course. Machines do not learn to become creative. Okay, so the machine learning is still keeping the creativity a little aside. So that is something that, at least now, although some people are trying, but at least now I would say is not a problem that ought to be addressed or attempted right now. Structured and well-formed text, this has got the highest usage. That's because anybody who is creating some content for their business, their sole objective is that whatever that I am writing, I would like a reader to be able to understand. Right? So that somebody can know about my service or my product or whatever else. Right? So they do make enough effort in keeping that understandable structure. So that is where, how do you, what is it that you do to be able to figure out? So for transliteration, although it's a very significant challenge, or for each of those, I am not going into the approaches separately, because we will not really have so much time if I have to try that. But for all of those, these are some of the things that you would definitely do. And regardless of what algorithm that you are already using or you want to experiment in future, or let us say you came across a paper which is already giving you more promising results against any other comparative algorithm, even then, if you do these things, then you are likely to get better results with your existing algorithms. So what are those? Cleanup. How do you clean? So I spoke to some people during this break, and they do clean, and everybody does. But how do we clean? I will try to cover some of this a little more elaborately later. Normalize. आपने कभी हिंदी लिखते हुए देखा है? हिंदी. ह में छोटी की मात्रा, आधा ना, द में बड़ी की मात्रा. राइट? ह में छोटी की मात्रा, अनुस्वार यानी बिंदी, द में बड़ी की मात्रा. Which is correct? But for the computer, both are not the same, right? Now, what is it that we will do? One of the things that we should do is normalize. Right? Let's say we normalize this. Okay. अभी एक और वर्ड है लंबा. ल, आधा म, ब में आ मात्रा. ठीक है. ल फिर अनुसार ब में आ मात्रा. तो ये जो अनुस्वार है इसमें वहां पे भी आ गया, यहाँ पे भी आ गया. कर क्या रहा है? What is that? So yeah, fortunately Tamil doesn't have answer. You don't have this problem. You have many other problems. So Tamil actually is it's one of my favorite languages. It's very simple, and yet it's very tricky. For those who are not familiar with the Dravidian languages, in Tamil all the 5 vargas have only 2 consonants. One base consonant, other is the nasal. Ka varga has got a ka and a anga. Cha, nya. Ta, na. That's it. Ta, na. Right? Pa, ma. So only for Tamil. Okay. So if you write Rajiv, so you will write Raji. Right? Rajiv. How do you write? Anyway, Gandhi becomes Kanti. But you would read that in context as Gandhi. So, happening to this Anuswar? So this is one example that I gave, that Anuswar actually in Hindi, why is it that it was okay to write it with an Anuswar? And in how many different words it is going to similarly have such forms? How would you know? Like in English, we can normalize ISE to IZE or IZE to ISE in one form and have a bunch of such rules. How many such rules can you actually write for Hindi or for different Indian languages? That is very, very important. Then break, stem or lematize. Now, a machine learning algorithms, although we want to have machine algorithms that can just be fed with data and we do nothing, right? मुझे लेकिन उसके बाद ये नहीं पता कि after you have done all of that, what is it that you would do? Because you would no more learn, right? The machine is learning. So when is it that you would come back to even learn what the machine should learn, or change how the machine should learn? Okay, so the machine learning process gives better results with fewer variables. Anybody who disagrees? Okay. Fewer variables. What does that mean? That if the system could only be either on or off, yes or a no, then there is a chance that by doing nothing you will get 50% accuracy. Right? By doing something you will learn better. But if a system has got 3 states, by doing nothing you will get 30% accuracy. And so on. So the number of variables that you increase, any brute force algorithm will also give you an accuracy in the reverse proportion of that. Beyond that, when you apply machine learning, it will only get better, but with fewer variables, the accuracies will be higher, right? So how do you reduce the variables? You can reduce variables when you are breaking it up. Breaking. So there are quite a lot of algorithms that do breaking on their own, right? So you use byte pair encodings also for that, or otherwise you sometimes use character level or most frequently occurred string patterns. But all of those auto algorithms are for people where, or data, where an engineer or a data engineer or a data scientist is not aware of the nature of the data. From the field, it is possible that you can still get a lot of data whose nature or properties you are not aware. But here you are dealing with data whose properties you are aware. So you will be able to produce significantly better results with a lot less time if you do these. Okay. Now, ASR. ASR is automatic speech recognition. These are the 4 different things that are the biggest challenges for ASR, right? I'm just trying to break, more generic problems down into very simple verticals. If you deal with these, you practically have dealt with majority of your problem statements. So the 4 are commands, that means usually one word, or one word plus a verb. Let's say on karo, off karo, right? Move karo. Dictation. Dictation is when you are actually trying to dictate a free text. So you are commanding and the machine should write for you. This, although might appear more difficult, this is a lot simpler problem. That is because when you dictate, if your acoustic models, now I am not going deeper into acoustic models, etc., because those are common things. Anybody who is working on ASR would obviously know. So if your acoustic model is more or less there, then Simply having longer sentences, your language models will give you far better results or a lot more accurate results. So the longer your dictations, more accurate they are likely to be. Short speech is rather super difficult, especially when it is, let's say, 2 words, 1 word. For example, if you have to just say "ha" or "na," very hard for an ASR engine. Then alphanumeric. So alphanumeric do not appear as words. For example, if you have to tell your phone number, or maybe you have to tell your PAN card number, right? Then they are a mix of, so there is no grammar to it. Most of the times, language models give you a super refined result because a language model is able to learn the vector and the context, and therefore is able to screen out what is probably not possible and give you a result that is quite accurate in context. But when you are talking about a PAN card number, let's say, or a driving license number or a phone number, the sequence of digits have got no connection. Wahan pe it becomes super difficult. So those are the cases where you are not supposed to use an LM. You should avoid using an LM in such cases. The machine, so it's very important for us to understand where to use a machine learning and where not to. A machine learning expects to give you enough context. So if you try and train it with a lot of PAN card numbers, gone. Okay? So, yeah. Okay. So what to do for ASR? This is what I said, that prepare data. When you are talking about speech, everything is phonetic, right? So we started off by saying Indian languages are phonetic, English is not. But when it comes to speech, everything is phonetic. Everything. Thereafter, even an English ASR will give you the right spellings. After getting all the phonetics, it tries to look up what spellings it should show you. Right? So, accents. So in the break, I heard people talk about accents. Many times we think that the quantity of data is important. But more than the quantity, it is the variance that is more important. If you are able to provide your machine with more variance, then the machine is forced to try finding out what is common within them and gets more and more tolerant. Whereas, if you are trying to statistically provide a lot more data of one kind, then the machine tends to become a lot less tolerant. So I am speaking a language that is a little against the usual machine learning practice. But these are the things that we get out of our own experiments. First we derive the logic and then do the experiment, that's what we find. So the more you, for example, you may have met people, जिन्होंने मान लीजिए you meet somebody from a different country and that person also speaks to you in English, but that English you don't understand, or you mistake it for some other words. That happens to us. Why? And eventually we do, right? That happens to us because we have not been exposed to that accent, that style. So if that happens to humans, for machines also, it happens the same way. So the more you use variants, it gets tuned. Now, there is another thing that relates to it, vocabulary. We always say that when you are trying to train a machine for something like an ASR, then these two things become equally important. That is building an acoustic model and also having the right language model. Language model relates to a particular language. But the funny part here is that the vocabulary that someone from Madras will use while speaking English is going to be very different from someone who will be speaking the same English from Haryana. He will say the same, he'll probably mean the same, but would probably use completely different vocabulary, different style of saying sentence. तो उसका तो language model ही बदल चुका है already. क्या करने वाले हो?
It's not just English, it's about
All languages. That's right. So what I am trying to say here is that although we all think that tackling Hindi is enough, but Hindi from Tamil Nadu and Hindi from Assam versus Hindi from Gujarat are going to be, it's not the accent alone. It is the vocab and therefore the language model. So how do you tackle with these problems? They get isolated. For example, if you are able to find out somebody who is speaking from Assam, then their accent and vocabulary will form a set, a combined set, and therefore will probably also have a language model that should tune to it. Right? So, so those are the things that we should do. Dealing with abbreviations is one of the trickiest problems. No matter what you do, when you are trying to create your training data, even after all the cleaning, pruning, stemming, lemmatizing, everything else that you can think of you have done, you will face this problem. Fortunately, in Indian languages, we do not know what is an abbreviation. जैसे भाजपा बोलते हैं ना, तो you cannot, sorry, इसमें फिर भी भा और ज और पा are just phonetically the first ones. They are not the first letters, right? They are the first syllables or clusters. So in Indian languages, we do not have shortcuts like that. So that problem doesn't exist. But Indian language training is never done in isolation. We are bound to mix English with it. And when we mix English with it, you are more likely to come across acronyms or abbreviations within your text and you will miss those out. Whether a number was written and then pronounced or said 203 or 203, you don't know.
In English text, when we are typing, any misspelling word generally replaced by a suggestion of similar word with one or two letters.
Yeah, yeah.
But in Indian language, the list is endless virtually. So how do we address that? And we have to take the whole, as you said on the letter, in ISKI case, we have a superset of all the characters.
Yes.
In case of dictionary, if we have to combine all the dictionaries, what do we do basically?
Oh, so the number of words or suggestions can be many. Is that what you are trying to say?
Yes. And the false signal is, probably the false signal is so high because the correct word in one language, Indian language, no word in another language. So what is correct and what is wrong? There is no boundary actually. So that gets confusing at this point.
Okay, so if you are talking about a system that should detect your language and then operate, then that is not a system that you should attempt at least now. At a phonetic level, it is a much higher magnitude problem right now. But if you are, let us say, you know the language, the source language, the user is going to speak in Hindi plus English or Hindi, right? But he is not going to speak in Hindi and Tamil together. Or that you don't know what language he will speak in Gujarati and you will detect Gujarati and then understand. That problem you should not start right now because that is a problem that is hard even for human beings today. Okay, so what I meant here is that dealing with abbreviations, etc., those are common for all languages, all Indian languages. And when it comes to suggestions, you will be surprised that in Indian languages, suggestions will be a lot fewer than in English. In English, the standard algorithms are more likely to produce many results just because of the non-phonetic nature of the script. Whereas in Indian languages, because of the phonetic nature, the result set is already streamlined to a very small set. Okay. So this is one that I promised some of you. I know that we are already at 4, but I think I'll take another 10 or 15 minutes to cover this. Are you all okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Data cleaning and normalizing. I spoke about one or two forms of normalizing. But if you follow the script grammar, you are more likely to clean data like no other algorithms can for you. Trust me, right? So beyond that, I will try and tell you some of the things that we should do. Is this correct? Is this how we can write back? No? What? Single? Bit? हैं? सही तो है वो कह रही है सही तो है right? Okay, people who think this is wrong, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. So approximately 10% of this population audience. This is all? Huh? Case. Incorrect. Huh? Okay. Then let us try to look at it like this. Is this correct? Correct? See, we are broken. अब बैट और बॉल है तो क्रिकेट कहाँ खेलेंगे? Okay. Now let us do something slightly different. Okay. Let's remove that B. क्या होना चाहिए? एनक वाला? कौन सा है? बताइए। इनमें से कोई भी नहीं? See how confused we can be with absolutely simple words. And this is a population I do believe that we are all sort of aware. हमको पता है at least बैट बॉल तो कैसे लिखते हैं होना चाहिए. These are common things that will appear in any text. है कि नहीं? So why has that happened? ये एक तो ये अ के ऊपर में भी चंद और ए के ऊपर में चंद्र मुझे तो समझ में नहीं आया. ठीक है. So what happens is that we come across these sort of text a lot. We do not realize, but in this room, if we can be confused with just two words, you have absolutely no idea the amount of confusion that people get into with the whole set of vocabulary in different domains wherever they write whatever text in local Indian languages, even by the people who are creating data in controlled environments by academicians and so on. Yes, ma'am.
I think these problems come only when we are looking at a transliterated text, right?
I did not translate it, ma'am. I just thought that I can ask this audience, how would you write these English words in your own language? So, no machine used, but at least let us say if people were to write, because people are writing, and that would be our primary source of collecting data.
So, are we looking at a transliterated something?
Yeah. So,
we have a lot of English words
correct.
which get into
Yes. So, that's right. So when you collect all of this data, you would use it eventually either for your transliteration engine or translation engine, whatever NLP that you would do, would have some data source, and that data source will have, words that are created by people like you and I who are confused.
It's matching with the template. That's the
Yes.
So,
So
I see these problems will come, will not come when we stick to our own language. Right? Even in Tamil or
correct.
whatever.
You are right, ma'am. I'm coming to that. I'm trying to come to that. So she said it right. See, what I was trying to say is that अगर आप और हम जैसे लोग, if we are confused, then so many people are confused. The idea is that if we do not make technology simple, and in the name of choice, we allow people everything, then they get confused. It's not that it is actually simplifying anything for them. And when they get confused in the name of choice, it makes it almost impossible for us to facilitate technology that can do things better for them. Right? Now, when you are collecting a lot of data and you want to create a solution that can serve the Indians, your data itself is now so difficult for you to deal with, you are unable to produce something for good enough for them, right? So why complicate it right in the first place? Okay, we'll come to it. Again. Okay, so let me ask all the people who are not from the 4 South Indian states, raise your hands. Because Chennai and Madurai are not your places, right? Okay. Only 5, 6, 10 people. For all of you, the first ones are correct, right? Second ones are correct?
Second and first one. First one. Second. Second one and first one. Second. First. Second and first. Second and first. First one. Second and first.
Okay, so people say second one and the first one are correct.
No. Second one and
Okay, okay. Second one and the first one are correct. Right?
yes, first.
Okay, practically, many people would write like this, but in both the cases, it's actually the second one which is correct for the native Tamilians. Madurai and Chennai. 2 vowels never come together in any of the South Indian languages. Okay? So, basically, if we have to normalize, we just have to understand हम क्या normalize कर रहे हैं, कहाँ का डेटा है, उसके साथ में किस तरीके से हम डील करें, तो हमको पता है these are lossless reproduction of the same. There is no loss, absolutely no loss. Okay? Now going by that, battery low. Okay, going by that, which one? Okay, so well, there is no first or second, there is no right or wrong here, right? Whatever that you would read, you would read. For example, in Ahmedabad, we write in Hindi as a, ma, but in Gujarati, Ahmedabad is the capital of Gujarat, right? Sorry, not a capital, but a major city in Gujarat. They write a, ma, there is no her. Okay, so you find data like this as well. I more or less definitely need power here. कैसे करें? No idea. Is it possible? Oh yeah, वहाँ से भी सकते हैं. Yeah, for a laptop. Here there is no power. Okay, so let's look at this. ये ईश्वर लिखा है ना? Have you ever tried writing ईश्वर the way it's written here? र हलन छोटी ई श हलन व र ऐसा कभी लिखा है? You try?
There's one point there.
Well, here. Oh, there is one here. You can try that. पहुंचेगी क्या? Otherwise, you can link the laptop also there. This cable is down.
You can see that it's nice.
So, if you try writing Ishwar like this and search on Google, you will be surprised the number of documents that you will get, and all of those documents from really good, authentic sources. So we are likely to trust such sources when we are collecting corpus or data, right? or. Okay, so nobody will actually tell us that we also have to do cleanup of this kind of data or normalization of this kind of data. Let us say if you are trying to implement a TF-IDF and somebody has written words like this, they are not going to give you the right sort of frequency, right? Are they? Are you able to more or less find out the right stats for the words or the letters or anything else? Very unlikely, right? So with that, more or less, I think I have completed जो हमको करना है. If there are questions, I can take, but I will otherwise try and explain why this happened.
Sir, how will you tokenize these words? Like
These-
in Hindi words, like if they are sandhi बने हुए हैं,
हाँ.
तो tokenize कैसे करेंगे? जोड़ना चाहिए कि नहीं जोड़ना चाहिए?
No, see, if there are words that are appearing as sandhi, then you must break them, because a sandhi is a way of writing. Whereas, whether it's way of writing or saying, but let's say if two words have participated in a sandhi, both the words are still maintaining their independent identity. Now, in your NLP, you will need both the words to be able to do any processing. If you don't, then both joined together now have a new identity. That will confuse your algorithms, right? Okay. So, can I go into why? Okay, why did that happen? This is a document from ISKI, a table. Okay, this table tried to enumerate all the characters that are listed in different Indian languages. All the characters, because it was superset, right? So you can see that somewhere in brackets it's mentioned southern scripts. That means this appears only in southern scripts. Something that is only in Devanagari, right? For example, there is a character that has been this Hindi padne wale or anybody who knows any Devanagari based languages do not know what that character is. It has been created only for representation, and therefore in brackets it's mentioned Tamil and Malayalam only, right? The word Tamil itself uses that. In fact, that's the reason why the actual English way of writing Tamil was TAMIZH. The people in the north were completely confused whether to call that Tamil or Tamiz. So therefore they changed that spelling. But Kanimuri is still ZHI, right? Okay. So this is what was done in ISKI. This representation was used. Then there was this table within which it was written for every script what are the different characters and what is the superset. So in defining the superset, they used the Devanagari representation, which also had some created shapes just for understanding, and a Roman representation. Okay. So this is that same. Lekin, what happened is, when Unicode was defined, when was ISKI defined? Okay, ISKI was standardized in 88. Released as a standard. In 91 it was revised, but it was defined long time ago. Long before that, right? Okay. But Unicode, the first version of Unicode was released in the year 1990. ISKI के 2 साल बाद हम ये मान लेते हैं कि around the time that ISKI was 1990 or 90 or 92, मुझे ठीक से एग्जैक्ट याद नहीं आ रहा. उस समय उन्होंने क्या किया कि अमेरिका में कुछ कंपनीज, एप्पल, एडोब, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट और IBM, ओरेकल, ये सारी कंपनीज मिलकर के सोचे यार हम लोग तो दुनिया में दूसरे दूसरे ज्योग्राफी में जाकर के बेचने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. We have to support those languages. At least within our software, we should be able to communicate properly. So ASCII is not enough. ASCII was good for America, that's why it's an American standard. We have to do for the rest of the world. And they thought if they have to do that, they can form a consortium of only themselves first, to begin with at least, and start defining for the different geographies that at least they are selling, where they can start. And see if in those geographies, if there is any existing standard that can be adopted. In that, they found that यार कहीं और कुछ हो ना हो, इंडिया के अंदर में ही तो मिल गए. यहाँ पे कितने लैंग्वेजेस मिले? 11 स्क्रिप्ट्स मिल गए. Okay, so Unicode's very first version came up with around 13 or 14 different world scripts, out of which 11 were from India. Directly picked up from here. But you know what was the blunder that they did? They thought that ये वाला जो है, ये देवनागरी है. यहाँ पे जो क्लियरली लिखा है देवनागरी, ये देवनागरी नहीं है, ये देवनागरी है. That means the very first Devanagari encoded code page for Unicode will have created or fabricated letters that did not exist in any Devanagari based language. What would it create? What would it create? It would create confusion in computing and among users. There are many texts you will find. ये वाला लिखा होगा है की जगह. Basically, you will find plenty of confusing text in Devanagari because confusing characters existed. And why did they do that? You know why did they do that? Because they took this and forgot the rest of the document. A document which was created after a lot of research was published as a standard, not without the rest of it, right? Not only one table. It came with tremendous amount of details. I can show you, it talks about the script grammar that I was talking about, everything else. Every bit of what was considered in evolving these encoding. And when Unicode defined Unicode for all the Indian scripts together right on version 1, they proudly were able to bring it out saying that we have covered so many languages. But all that they did was only take this table, nothing else. तो जब वो देवनागरी में वैसा वाला दिखाए, तो यूनिकोड का ऐसा है कि जो हमने नहीं किया है अभी, तो आगे भी चल करके अच्छा करेंगे. उनके दो नियम हैं. एक नियम ये कि जो हमने यहाँ पे डाल दिया, यूनिकोड में डाल दिया, उसको हम वापस कभी नहीं लेंगे. Why? Because it is a promise to the consortium that if you have followed the standard, your software will never become obsolete for the standard. Okay, so for backward compatibility, we will never make any removals. So if we have done a blunder, we will live with the blunder also. Okay, so they introduced a lot of junk in Devanagari, and then during those days, further revisions, India was still pretty innocent. कंप्यूटिंग यहाँ पे उतना था नहीं, लोगों को पता नहीं था, और वहाँ पे ये सब चल रहा है. तो रिवीजन के दौरान वहाँ पे जो होगा कोई बंगाली या उड़िया या तेलुगु, वो पूछा होगा, उसको हिंदी भी पता हो, तो यार ये देवनागरी में ये सारे कैरेक्टर्स क्या हैं, तो उनको बताया होगा कि यार वो इसकी डॉक्यूमेंट से जब लिया था उसमें देवनागरी में ये सब हैं, उधर लिखा हुआ है ब्रैकेट में साउथ इंडियन लैंग्वेज के लिए, साउथ इंडियन लैंग्वेज दिखाएंगे. तो उसको लगा कि यार तो अगर मैं बंगाली में भी साउथ इंडियन दिखाना चाहूँगा यार, मैं क्यों छूट जाऊँ, है ना, उड़िया में भी दिखाऊंगा. सो दे थॉट दे कैन देयरफॉर इंट्रोड्यूस समथिंग. It became a playground where a lot of people, they thought that let us try and qualify new characters that can be introduced into our languages. And it is getting accepted at an international consortium. Great, right? कॉलर खड़ा करने पड़ता. So go back and look at the Unicode code pages for your respective languages and see what has happened there. And for all the advocacy that Unicode does, that we are trying to nurture all the scripts and languages of the world, what is happening to its contemporary usage? कि आज के डेट में somebody who really wants to take Telugu content from the internet to be able to create a little solution for the people in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, where he goes, what happens to it? And it didn't end there. ये define करने के बाद, then Microsoft thought that display कैसे handle करेंगे? So Adobe was another company, they were making fonts, Adobe and Microsoft. They thought that अभी वर्ल्ड के डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस के लिए जो फॉन्ट्स डिस्प्ले हैंडल करना है, हम लोग एक स्टैंडर्ड बनाते हैं अपना. एंड दे फॉर्म्ड अ कंसोर्शियम ऑफ 2 companies, Adobe and Microsoft, and created their font standard called OpenType. And then they said, anywhere in the world, if anybody is trying to make any other font standard, it will not be supported on our operating system. How many people are there who are using any other operating system? Okay. क्योंकि हमारा ही ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम सब जगह चल रहा है, हम अगर ये कहते हैं कि बस आपको यूज करना है तो यही स्टैंडर्ड यूज करना पड़ेगा. So they thrust upon us the OpenType font standard. The Unicode, which ignored script grammars and everything else that was native to Indic computing and Indic language properties, that could allow us to create really good computing and good quality text, put together with OpenType standards which also ignored all of it and focused only on display, ended up allowing these sort of things to happen. And these are some of the examples I am giving only from Devanagari because most people here will be able to read and understand Devanagari. But if you look at your own scripts and languages, you will be surprised at the amount of normalization efforts that you have to put. So I used to fight with them. And Google at some point started boasting that they have figured out or they have made an extensive list for every script, what all different anomalies and normalizations that are needed. And my argument was that कांटे पे कपड़े डालो, फिर उसके बाद में, right? So why do you first spoil it? And then you say that we want to have another layer that will continue doing this cleanup or normalization. Why do you have to? That means perpetually for the rest of the future of our languages, we will have to live with a lot of additional code. And in future, the more that we will get engineers to come and work on NLP, they wouldn't know all of this, right? They would have forgotten about it. So they will not know what sort of baggage that they would have to carry mandatorily. And when they would not be getting the right results, they would continue to struggle कि हम किस तरीके से इंग्लिश में तो बेटर रिजल्ट्स आ रहे हैं, हमारे में नहीं आ रहे हैं अभी, हमको और डेटा डालना है, डेटा नहीं है सही, right? We will continue to struggle with all of that. Yes.
There is some grammar in the scripting itself. So one layer of grammar in the scripting, can it not solve this just like an API as a black box, which will solve this kind of extra baggage?
That it can, but where would you put it? See, who is creating the text? An end user. Where he is creating? On a computer. On a computer. What is he using? An operating system. And a word processor. Or maybe the browser. वो सारे में आपका तो रोल कहीं पे भी नहीं है, तो आप वो जो लेयर कहाँ डालोगे, आप कैसे डालोगे? अगर वो डाल पाने वाली बात होती तो मैं 20 साल पहले कर दिया होता.
So you spoken about listening and then you spoken about Unicode. In your research, like these years, have you seen anybody else make any other standards that are more better for Devanagari or the other languages?
I have seen people create, I myself have also created pure consonant-based encoding, and I use pure consonant-based encodings very extensively for my NLP. But those are lossless conversion between either ISCI or Unicode. So that I maintain. Yeah, people do for the type of need that you will have, you do. Even for English, people do.
So, I mean, just on the top of my head, people in IIS could actually be creating standards, the next standard for Indian languages. Could they?
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you, but we must understand that whether we can create something even better or not is not yet a question. The fact is that something that was very well thought and well done, if not the best, let us say, was still existing, and this change could happen, right? We could not control it. Even if we create something better, how would you? Because ultimately, when the whole community and the different industry will try to create solutions, they will depend on people to or all the sources to collect data or create data. वो कब होगा, कैसे होगा, right? So I do think that if we are at least aware, we will be able to, clean data or create and also help in building it a lot better. I still have, I still do not know how we can help the publishing industry, which is constantly suffering because the right to be able to create good designs with their fonts and styles, etc., was just snatched away from them, and they are suffering. And with them, even we are suffering because we are unable to get access to really good quality data that they create. But with this knowledge, at least whatever that is available with us, we can still do a lot, right? But in the journey in winning in NLP over English, I am quite certain that, with great, brilliant Indian engineers who are trying to solve Indian problems, we should be able to do that. But these will still be, hurdles or thorns on our way.
So any deep learning or neural network usage is there in language, like giving that implicit logic, and having come across the extensive usage of deep learning in.
Now, all those things that ASR and machine translation, transliteration, you will use deep learning. You will use machine learning. Deep learning is a type of machine learning only. So you will use all of that. I have not gone into specific algorithms because no matter what algorithm you are using, you will still need data in the first place. By doing these things, you will be able to do a lot better with your existing data, existing algorithms.
Any tools available, let's say somebody wants to start from scratch, or do they have to develop these tools of parsing this kind of text on their own, or are there any availability from any source?
Yeah, actually we made a lot of tools available free on our website for a long time, but हमारा visibility कम था इसलिए उस समय we had taken it down. But I don't know if there are other ready tools available. There is, because most people do not know all of this. They don't even want to know. Why would they even see today? If somebody is coming out and getting into NLP, he will work with Unicode and he will look at Unicode documents. Nobody will tell him, okay, this is how it is, or these are the things that you should know, right? So therefore, there is no need, or nobody is feeling the need, and therefore it isn't there. But yeah, we can make all of that is available. I can help the industry, whatever free tools that we have, we can give it all out.
So if we go to your website,
Right now, they are not live on our website anymore. But so if the industry needs, I will try and make all of those back up in the website. We actually even put a lot of things on GitHub. So I can point out to those projects where you can find some resources for sure.
Have you also exposed your waves data in multiple languages?
What sort of?
Data, like the translated one, the English.
You mean corpus?
Corpus, yeah.
So there are some tailored corpus that we haven't, but Other than that, see, right now we ourselves have also bought a lot of corpus from different sources that you can buy. The only great thing about us is that whenever we have also bought corpus, let's say we have bought corpus from CIIL or other such sources, it is our solutions are giving much better results than any other because we know these, right? Others, they do not know, and therefore, they are still suboptimal. For example, today you try Google's machine translation. Google is in any case collating all the data that is available on the internet, and they are putting in a lot of people, right? And they have access to all sorts of corpus, much bigger than what we can ever get access to. But look at the quality of their machine translation versus ours. You'll be able to see the difference.
This is a follow-up question to the translation part.
Yeah.
So one of the more popular translation ways is something called as DeepL.
Which one?
DeepL.
DeepL. Yeah.
This is primarily for the Western language.
Okay.
So they have public facing page where you could do upload in basis like get an upload, documents, you can download, translate documents. And of course it's a freemium kind of model.
Right.
The more advanced model you can get it. Is that something that you can, because your machine translations are better, would you think that's a good the fact that there is a translation available?
Yeah.
Would make it more simpler?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know in what model they make it available. If you pass me, I'll definitely look at it. Yes.
I think the more important thing also would be the need, and they also would need funds.
Exactly right.
So,
So,
there has to be some.
Yeah, right now our translation APIs are licensed, but we have a free model, free thing that is available for people to use. It's not for, you can't use a large amount of data on that because it's limited. But it is available for commercial use as a license.
Are you also doing ASR in Indian language?
Yeah. So we have ASR right now for 8 Indian languages, and before the end of the year, we will be having ASR for 12 Indian languages.
So are there any such state-of-the-art content that is like word-to-vec?
Yes.
Or in Indian language?
So word-to-vec also use the same algorithms you can use to create word-to-vec for Indian languages, but the data itself is something that you will struggle with. You can get a lot of access to good amount of data through TDIL and maybe also CIL right now.
Do you have such embedding? It's a great.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there any possibility for you to open source something like that?
Okay, I will look at it. See, this is also my first time that I am actually looking at an industry which is so interested. Because so far we have been getting requests कि हमको direct translation के APIs दे दो, ASR के APIs दे दो, right? So very few requests that have been that okay, we want something fundamental in Indic NLP that we want to do. So we want access to tools that can help us in building blocks. So this is the first time I am actually facing this sort of a problem. So I will make sure we are facilitating some.
Do you also have KPIs?
TTS, yes. So we have TTS for about again about 8 or 9 languages we already have. So by end of the year we will have about that same 12 languages plus English.
In addition to TDIL, what was the other resource you mentioned?
So you should look at CIIL.
CIIL.
तो CIIL तो आप यहाँ से अभी ड्राइव करके भी चले जाओगे मैस्टर में. Okay. So in fact, another good thing is that you know Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is also trying to come up with, in their AI for all initiative, they are also trying to come up with AI specifically for Indic NLP. And they want to facilitate a lot of resources. So ये जो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि CIL हो, TDIL हो, ये सारे resources plus whatever resources that the industry is willing to contribute will also be available on a platform. But I don't know in what time frame though. They are trying that. See, all said, we will all, no matter what solution we are trying to build, we will all work to get data. That is the first thing that we will all work towards.
Yes.
But even with the data, the winning is not just the data and the algorithm. It is all of this. बिकॉज वो डेटा और एल्गोरिथम्स लगभग सबको इक्वली मिलेगा, मोर और लेस, राइट? लेकिन we want to do good. We ought to understand, okay, what is the type of soil over which we are laying our foundation. If we don't have that understanding, we will not be able to create the right foundation, and therefore we will make a suboptimal solution.